very good evening and welcome to Newswatch tonight. My name is Melissa Odor and my sign language interpreter is Boniface Mureithi. Today is the first day of December 2022, the iconic World AIDS Day. Newswatch begins now as we highlight some of the issues that ran across the day as we observed and marked the World AIDS Day. Now, Kenya has made great strides in managing HIV infections and ending stigma associated with the disease since the first case was reported in 1984. Let's now have a look at some of the HIV statistics made by the country. Now, as Kenyans joined the rest of the world in marking the World AIDS Day today, residents of Kiambu County have been urged to get tested and know their status. The commemoration of the World AIDS Day in Kiambu County was marked at the Ruiru Level 4 Hospital, with the rallying call being to end the triple threat, namely new HIV infections, adolescent pregnancies, and sexual and gender-based violence. Alice Dana attended the event in Kiambu and filed the following report.
Hundreds of residents of Kiambu County gathered at Ruiru Level 4 Hospital to celebrate the World AIDS Day in style. The event kicked off with a procession from the hospital to Ruiru town and back with the aim of creating awareness about the day. And when the speeches began, all the speakers called on the local residents to get tested and know their status.
For every 3 people that we put on treatment, a new HIV infection occurs. So we're taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps, 1 step back. So we're not moving. And if we're going to end HIV and AIDS as a public health threat by 2030, we really must increase our efforts.
Even though the new HIV infections in Kiambu County have reduced, health practitioners raised concern over the surge of new HIV infections in the country and called on Kenyans to follow the preventive measures. Community health volunteers, CHVs, further raised concern over the use of their own resources and funds while offering their services, especially in mashinani, with no appreciation.
Saa zingine hatuna maybe vifaa, lakini tungeomba serikali, lakini though serikali imeweza kutupatia vifaa chache, lakini bado tunahitaji vifaa mingi ya kuweza kufikia wale wananchi wakiwa pale mashinani.
Tu serikali iweze tu kutusaidia, tuweze kutupa tu kidogo pesa angalau tunaweza shikiliwa ndio tuweze kufanya hiyo kazi tukiwa na ile nguvu.
Kwa mfuko hatuna kitu, from 2010 hatujaiweka kitu kwa mfuko mpaka wa leo. Nyingine ya pili, ukishapata mgonjwa kwa nyumbani, unatoa pesa zako kwa mfuko, unalipa dudhi ama unatafuta gari ndio aweze kufika kwa facility.
Biashara Ward MCA Nduta Kimani assured them that they will soon pass a bill that is already in the county assembly that will ensure they get a stipend for their noble work.
Nataka kuhakikishia kwamba kuna bill ambayo iko kwa assembly na hiyo tutapitisha sote bila kupingwa. Kwa sababu katika ma MCA 87 kukipatikana mmoja ambaye anataka kubishana na bill amba anataka kugairi na bill ambayo inafaa isaidie wenzetu ambao wamekuwa wakifanya kazi ya kujitolea, then inamaanisha huyo ni msaliti.
Kiambu Health CEC Dr. Nganga Murega, who represented Governor Kimani Wamatangi, urged the residents to register with NHIF that will cater for their bills when they get sick.
We have also had made a big step to ensure that babies born of positive parents do not get HIV. This has been through a the program of maternal to child health prevention, and we'll find that many couples who might have tested positive through proper use of their medication and health advice by their caretakers, they are able to deliver HIV-free offsprings.
Those who attended the celebrations also got a chance to know their status and encouraged others to also do so.
Just know your status so that you can be safe, you can protect, or should I say, you prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS to other people.
Wenye hajapimwa wapimwe, ni vizuri kujijua ili kama uko nayo usiende kuambukiza wale wengine.
Ningependa watu wawe engaged kwa vitu ambazo zinatukeep busy, at least creative maybe movements and the likes kama scouting, ili we keep our minds away from mambo ambayo inatufanya tukuwe engaged kwa vitu zinazosababisha mambo kama ukimwi.
Newton Kibui, who has lived with the virus for the last 7 years, said accepting his status is what has kept him going despite stigmatization towards those with the virus.
Nilianza tena kutafuta bibi. Sasa singetafuta tena bibi tu vile kuchukua moyo yote. Ilibidi nianze kutafuta either mwenye anakunywa dawa ama mwenye atanikubali kama ninakunywa dawa. Juu si kuficha tena. Juu si kutaka kuficha mtu. Alafu akishaolewa kwangu ajue mimi ni mgonjwa.
Community health volunteers from this county are saying although their work is difficult, it will be made easier if they are assisted with resources and even given stipends. For Hope TV Newswatch in Kiambu County, I'm Alice Diana.
Chief Justice Martha Koome has presided over the launch of a sexual and gender-based violence SGBV court in Mombasa County. Koome affirmed that plans are underway to launch a special court in Nairobi in a bid to aid the process of bringing perpetrators of such acts to book. Tiffany Wamboi gives us the details.
Sexual and gender-based violence, otherwise known as SGBV cases, have been on the rise in Kenya as the vice is one of the triple threats, others being new HIV infections and early teen pregnancies. Chief Justice Martha Koome was welcomed in Shanzu, Mombasa County as she officiated over the launch of a special court that will prosecute cases on SGBV as part of interventions in aiding victims of violence. Speaking during the launch, she underscored the need to have more courts that deal in cases of sexual and gender-based violence.
We started here in Shanzu. We are ready to start Nairobi. When you tell me so, I'm ready to launch Nairobi, because sometimes it is good to move on, then these other things will follow us.
The Chief Justice, who doubles up as the President of the Supreme Court, assured the public that the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, is committed to ensure there is enough human resource capacity to dispense justice to Kenyans.
Before the Judicial Service Commission, we have a huge task of ensuring that we have enough human resource capacity to render justice to our people. But had we said, let us wait for the JSC to recruit magistrates so that we start here, we would never have started. Because we have those who work with the victims. We have police officers who receive this report. There is so much, and there is need for this office to be situated here in Shanzu.
Speaking during the same event, Justice Njoki Ndung'u of the Supreme Court lamented the trauma and pain experienced by victims of SGBV, as most of them are below the age of 17 and some below 12.
Most victims are under the age of 17. They don't even recognize when something happens to them. Many victims don't even know that they are victims. And I think that we need to do a little bit more in terms of prevention, even before they have to come to the courts. And aftercare for both the victims and the perpetrators is a very important thing.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, KNBS, 4% of men aged between 15 and 49 have experienced both physical and sexual violence, while that of women hits a higher rate of 12%. Further, violence against children has become rampant in the country and is often rated as serious public health, human rights, and a social crisis. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Tiffany Wamboi.
Now, Kenya has made commendable progress in the HIV and AIDS response. According to UNICEF, The number of children living with HIV in Kenya has greatly reduced from 180,000 in 2010 to 115,500 in 2020. However, infection rates among the youth aged between 15 to 24 remains concerning, especially in Homa Bay County, which has been flagged as one of the most affected counties by the disease. Now, our reporter Dolly Mwirigi Mbuvi spent time with some teenagers in the county who shared their highs and lows of living with HIV. Here is the Positive Teens story.
Despite progress made in fight against HIV and AIDS, gender inequality, poor access to services and poverty are fueling high numbers of HIV cases in Homa Bay.
Homa Bay County has been flagged as among the most affected counties by the HIV and AIDS epidemic. Nearly a quarter of the county's entire population lives with HIV. Approximately 10,600 people test positive for HIV each year, and more than 3,300 people die of AIDS-related causes annually. Although Kenya has made significant progress in the fight against HIV and AIDS, the rate of young people testing positive with HIV keeps rising. This situation is threatening future generation, as many children are now living with HIV, having been infected at birth. In Sophia Village, we meet Mary, not a real name. Mary is among hundreds of adolescents in Homa Bay who contracted the virus at the time of delivery shortly after birth. Mary has been living with HIV for 17 years now. She tells us that she got to know her status when she was 12 years old.
I was born with HIV and AIDS, and I realized it at the age of 12 when my mom used to give me drugs, and I would be like, hizi ni dawa za nini? And she would tell me, hizi ni dawa zenye ukichukua utakuwa sawa. But due to curiosity, each and every time I would persist. And one day she decided to sit me down, and she told me that there is this disease called HIV, and I have it. Nilipata already nilishasikia HIV in class 6. So aliniongelesha, and then I was like, you know, with that mentality of, there was this, in class 5, there was this book that had this writing that AIDS is a killer disease. So when I was told that I was HIV positive and I had the AIDS virus within me, I was like, oh, so I'm going to die. And my mom was like, no, you're not going to die, because there are drugs that when you take, you'll be okay.
With the family's support, Mary has been able to accept a positive status. At one time, Mary met a friend who had been living with the virus. She says that is when she began to accept herself.
I never wanted to tell anybody that I was HIV positive. So taking drugs became a problem. Stigmatization chipped in. I discriminated myself from my friends. And it reached a point that my viral load had shot, because I was not taking drugs, because I felt like I was not worthy of living. I felt like maybe there was a sin that I did, that's why I contracted the disease. My mom tried convincing me, my brothers, my father, but it was not working. I was taken to different counselors, but it was not working because I was so much hellbound that I was HIV positive, I'm cursed, and I'm going to die. But I came across a friend who she spoke to me, and then later on she revealed to me that she was also HIV positive. Nilishtuka. She was very healthy. She told me that being HIV positive, it's not a curse, it's something normal. And if I accept myself, I'll be okay. And then there was this energy that chipped within me, and I was like, I want to be like her. So I started taking my medication, and also considering my diet, because before that nilikuwa na starve myself. Sababu nilijua I was cursed. I felt like I should die.
HIV behavioral changes proponent says risky behaviors such as having multiple sexual partners, having unprotected sex, and taking hard drugs are some of the contributing factors leading to high HIV positive cases.
Yes.
We meet Alex, not his real name, also from Sophia Village in Homa Bay County. Alex contracted HIV while in Form 2. At that time, he was a student at a nearby day school in his home area.
Lazima tulikuwa na mabeshte tulienda sherehe. Then it was on a Friday night. So tukapata club. Tuka-agree tukaenda nyumbani. Then we had unprotected sex. Yeah. So after that, well, I never saw the lady again actually. So nikarudi home. Monday niko shule kawaida, but then nikaanza after some weeks passed by, but nikaenda kuna like malaria some days. Then nikaenda hosi nikapimwa, kuna malaria, nikapewa dawa. Then pia nikarudi nikiwa hadi kidogo. Then next time after some weeks tena ikarudi, but iko a bit serious. So nikaenda, then waka propose, okay, kama last time kuna malaria, are you okay to kupima HIV test? Nikasema okay, you can do the test. Wakapima, and then wakaniuliza kama umepatwa na HIV, what will you do? How will you accept it? How reaction yako itakuwaje? Nikasema okay, na mimi najua first nilikuwa najua I'm not positive, I'm negative. So nikasema kama nimepatwa nita accept, nitachukua tu dawa, but hiyo ndio kunaongea before upatikane naye. So after kupimwa, then vile kupimwa first walitumia hii the oral quick, hii tu ya oral tukaweka kwa mdomo, then wakaniongezea like 20 minutes. Then pia nikakaa nje kidogo kupimwa, kaa inatoka ni moja, ikitoka moja ni negative, ikitoka mbili ama ingine iko fade kidogo, hiyo ni positive. But then wakaangalia na hiyo wakanionyesha, nikasema mnaweza pima tena. Mimi ilikuwa era ingine kidogo, wakafanya advance, walifanya sasa ile ingine like 3 times. The result was the same.
His family and friends, Alex says he would take ARV drugs every day, knowing that.
So hapo ndo sasa stress ikaingilia, dawa wakasema lazima nikuwe enroll kwa dawa, nianze tu like immediately, wananienroll nianze immediately kila kitu kwa system. So nilikuwa shocked, but sikuwa nataka waone ile reaction yangu that I'm shocked. Juu mimi nilikuwa na yule mtu the silent person, siongei mambo zangu na nyamazanga tu.
Challenge of stigma and disclosure attached to the disease, Alex decided not to disclose his status to some of his friends.
To my friends, sijawaambia almost kila mtu sijawaambia. Juu saa zingine mnaweza kaa na beshte, then mnaona tu reaction zao vile wanaongelea wengine. Wanasema sasa unajua yule anakuwa na HIV. Hapo usiende nini, but sasa unaona ina create ile gap. Unapata sasa kama huyu ndiye anaongelea sasa, je, mbuse mimi hapo ndio sign aleta shida ingine.
Riako village, about 800 meters from Sophia village, is Esther, not a real name.
It is so challenging if you have a child with HIV. when you want to disclose where and how he got it, it is very painful for a child to know he or she is positive, but you have to gather that courage to disclose the issue so that he can grow knowing he is positive.
A community volunteer and a caregiver to a 9-year-old daughter, Esther has lived with the virus for 11 years now. This is always a delicate thing for most parents due to the stigma associated with the disease. Adolescents living with HIV face stigma from the society. This makes them feel discriminated. Jane Gatia, counseling psychologist, tells us more. Art school.
That is one of the world view in the teenage, that they are good, they are smart, they can outdo anything, and they even believe they can't die, and that's why they take risks, you know. And in that confusion, some of them also get infected. But get to think of a teenager who discovers that they are living with HIV. That can be, first of all, very traumatizing. It can traumatize the teenager. And it can also throw them off balance in such a way that they begin to isolate themselves. They develop even withdrawal symptoms because they don't see how they will be able to engage with their own peers. And remember also, they experience peer pressure. And this peer pressure actually accelerates the story of I am different, I am not like them, they may not accept me, they may not like me. So those are some of the issues that the teenager will go through, and it can be quite tragic. And some of them even get depressed.
Mary found it difficult to keep her status to herself. This especially after students became curious due to a continued taking of medication for various ailments. Research.
When I joined Form 1 boarding, stigmatization chipped in. Because now, wengine walikuwa nasema ule dema na mezanga dawa za color blue, and I'm like, I even thought that my best friend was going to support me, but she failed me because she was the one who said to the whole school that I'm taking drugs. And it seems like they are HIV and AIDS drugs. I felt bad, but I kept on taking the drugs. And then one day I went to a counselor at my school. He spoke to me. He even gave me a purpose of living. He told me that I could make it in life. And it's not about other people. It's about me.
Researchers into the prevalence of HIV in Omabi region have cited poverty, cultural practices, sex for fish culture, and lifestyle-related factors as major contributors to the epidemic. The region is also a hotspot for teenage pregnancies.
Omabi is still leading in the cases, and the number is mostly adolescents between the age 13 to 18 years. And this does not just only come with the HIV/AIDS, it is now a double tragedy where we have got the HIV/AIDS and teenage pregnancy. So they are all together as part of it. So we are still leading, and just with the new cases of new HIV infections. So we still have the highest number which we had by last time. Then again, during the COVID, the number increased because there's a high number of new infections within the region.
To bridge the gap within the society, the LIVDA, Lake Victoria Basin Talent Development and Adolescents Health, is working closely with the teens to nurture their talents. They do this through using drama and theatre to create awareness of the disease. Roger.
As long as you feel you are talented, and that goes hand in hand, whereby right now we are doing a workshop in terms to train people, both adults and young people.
Tomolo is the founder of Activate Action, a community-based organization The CBO support local youth on matters surrounding sexual and reproductive health in Homa Bay County. Omola,
every young person that tests positive, they are being referred.
Is determined to create a culture within his community where HIV testing and reproductive health rights are openly discussed. The CBO has since become like a small haven for Mary to volunteer.
In terms of self-stigma, we are training them on how to accept their HIV status, how they can cope with their HIV status, and more how they can be productive even when they are living with HIV or disability.
Yes, besides supporting the teenager, I also advocate and strongly suggest that we need very strong programs, powerful programs that are focusing on the teenager. I know in our country, in Kenya, many things have been done towards helping the teenagers and particularly trying to curb new infections. But what about those teenagers who are already living with HIV? We need great support for them. We need the society to rally around the teenagers, come up with helpful programs, support the government as the government also support the society, and come up even with support groups for teenagers living with HIV.
In counties with the highest HIV prevalence according to the National AIDS and STIs Control Program are Homa Bay with 18.5%, Kisumu 17.3%, Siaya with 16.2%, 11.8% in Migori County, 6.7% in Busia, 6.5% in Mombasa, Uasin Gishu County with 5.6%, Nairobi County with 5.2%, Vihiga County with 4.6%, and 4.1% in Trans Nzoia. Despite the personal struggles, victory is certain for those living positively as they have refused to be defined by the disease. Dolly Mwirigi for Hope TV from Homa Bay County. From Homa Bay.
Thank you, Dolly, for that very comprehensive report. What a story. What a story indeed. Now, on the national front, the Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha has indicated that HIV/AIDS infections have increased by 7.5% as of 2021, an indicator that whereas there is progress in ARVs intake and reduction of HIV-related deaths, more still needs to be done. Nakhumicha was speaking during celebrations to mark the World AIDS Day at Kibabii University in Bungoma County, where she noted that women and girls continue to be on the receiving end of new HIV infections. Sadly, young people between the ages of 15 to 24 are showing high rates of infection. We begin our bulletin on that National AIDS Day celebrations. We continue our bulletins with the story from Bungoma County.
HIV and AIDS remains a huge concern for Kenya's public health sector. Despite tremendous progress in dealing with the uptake of ARV drugs in the country, which has risen to 1.1 million as of 2021 from 250,000 in 2010, and a 58% decline in HIV-related deaths annually from 52,964 cases in 2010 to 22,373 cases as of 2021, HIV infections have increased by 7.5%. An indicator that more needs to be done to bring this number down.
Even as we celebrate the progress we have made, we remain alert that this battle is not over. HIV cases increased by 7.5% in 2021. That is not a good thing, my fellow countrymen. While women and girls continue to bear the brunt of the new HIV infections, the treatment outcomes for men and boys remain poor.
Even more worrying is that there is an increase in HIV infections among adolescents and young people between the age of 15 to 24 years. According to Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha, adolescents' pregnancies, sexual and gender-based violence are the leading causes of the growing infections within this age bracket.
Also faced with the challenge of stemming new HIV infections among adolescents and young people aged 15 to 24 years. These infections are primarily driven by the layered challenge of adolescent pregnancies and sexual and gender-based violence, now dubbed the triple threat. And our athlete has given us a solution that I believe doesn't need a very big budget. For us, kutengenezea wamama wetu uniform, sidhani ni bei kali kushinda zile nguo zingine wanavaa. I think it will be very easy. These overlapping challenges of new HIV infections, pregnancies, and sexual and gender-based violence among our children negate the gains we make in the health and education sector. They are not only disruptive to an individual, but the whole society.
To address the gaps, the government plans to expand digital solutions to enhance prevention and treatment programs. CS Nakumicha noted that although HIV is not a death sentence, the country should focus on prevention measures.
We will leverage on digital solutions to enhance our prevention and treatment programs.
On her part, the National Syndemic Diseases Control Council Executive Director, Dr. Ruth Marsha, called on collaborative efforts from all stakeholders to end AIDS as a public health threat, sentiments that were shared by WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
And the reason we are off track with children, because we have allowed children to be mothers. So we are having a conversation with children on how to protect themselves from HIV and how to protect another child from HIV. Because we are dealing with something is not just a disease, but a society problem. And that's how the triple threat came to be. We examined the transmission rates. Chief guest, none of the counties reached the 5%, less than 5% transmission rate we had envisioned in 2021. Indeed, as a country, we only reached 8.9%. We missed that target. To that, while we are seeing Botswana, who have a high epidemic like ourselves, saying that the WHO has pre-validated them to eliminate new HIV infections among children, we are still stuck with more than 5,700 new infections among children. Wananchi, hiyo ni kitu mzuri.
When I was a governor, I challenged the people that we do a public testing of HIV. When I looked behind, the line was not there. Everybody had disappeared. I was the only one. I want to encourage you that it's important to know your status. Because when you know your status, if you are positive, you will not infect others. If you are positive, you will be more careful in the way you operate. So I want to encourage all those who are here that after this you can go and check. Normally it's very confidential. These days it takes very few minutes.
Grace Angoi for Hope TV Newswatch.
Let's take a short break at this point. We'll be back with many other news items. Don't go too far.
HIV.
Wakasema sitafanikiwa, amebadilisha mambo.
Hizo ndizo habari za sasa za runinga ya CB, station nambari 1 na yenye habari zinazoaminika zaidi.
Maybe you know it.
Okay.
I have this hope that cannot be shaken. Maybe you've heard of it.
Shooting for the stars when you're nyota. Bado mi wish ka Toyota.
But you've never witnessed it. Come and be part of a whole new take on Friday Frenzy, a musical interpretation by DJ Kevin and Tiffany Wamboi. And a special guest appearance. Only on Hope TV every Friday from 8:50 p.m.
Welcome back. And as Kenya today joined the world in commemorating the World AIDS Day and continuing with the 16 days of activism, the University of Nairobi, in collaboration with UNESCO and UN Women, have officially launched a gender desk, which incorporates this year's theme of Equalize. Now, the gender desk aims to provide support for all students and genders to have access to health-saving HIV medical care and bring the much more focus on social gender issues and equality in order to address them with decorum. During the event, Gender-Based Violence Recovery Center boss Dr. Sam Thenya pledged to offer technical support and psychologists to support the UN Gender Desk. Dr. Thenya, who runs the Nairobi Women Hospitals, revealed that out of the 3,221 survivors they have attended to this year alone, 26% of them are aged between 20 to 29 years, which is the common age group of most university students. Gloria Musimbi with more.
As the 16 days of activism continues and correlates to the World AIDS Day observed today, University of Nairobi, in partnership with UN Women and UNESCO, have officially launched the Gender Desk in institution premises that will support victims of gender-based violence who are prone to contracting HIV and AIDS and facing mental health issues.
Please, you have to say with me.
Speaking during the launch, UNESCO Regional Director Professor Herbert Gidzen stated that the highest HIV infections happen to youth between the ages of 15 to 20. He said this age group does not often realize that they are most vulnerable and so do not get tested. Professor Gidzen therefore urged the youth to be cautious and seek education, as it is also a preventive measure from HIV and AIDS.
When it comes to HIV, in the absence of a cure, education is the only vaccine available. Working closely with relevant ministries, national and regional structures, university, and key partners, UNESCO continues to support university students in access to life skills-based, culturally appropriate sexuality education and sexual and reproductive health services.
On her part, UN Women Country Representative Anne Mutavati stated that most HIV cases are as a result of gender-based violence, and recently the number of young females contracting HIV and AIDS in the country has increased.
Gender-based violence is highly also prevalent. So remember, I'm talking about HIV, I'm also talking about GBV, because the two belong in the same WhatsApp group, right? Gender-based violence is highly prevalent in Kenya, with more than half of the women disclosing that they've been subjected to sexual harassment since the age of 15. Therefore, there is an urgent need to increase gender programs that transform our norms, our attitudes, and our practices so that we join hands to end gender-based violence and HIV.
Delivering the speech on behalf of UN Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Julius Ogengo stated that through their HIV prevention program based in their campus premises, they have effected deliberate measures to test, prevent and manage HIV and AIDS.
Developing an army of what we call peer mentor and the O3+ champions who will be an immediate source of help for their fellow students. The same way when you need money, there is M-Pesa all around. I hear there are around 18,000 agents of M-Pesa. Anytime you have a money challenge and there is money in the M-Pesa, you can withdraw and transact. We also want, in every 10 students, there is a mentor, a peer mentor who can reach out to the student and they make sure that they don't suffer with their problem.
Reacting to the launch of Gender Desk and celebrating World AIDS Day, various youths were impressed with the initiative and urged their peers to spread awareness, support GBV victims and get tested for HIV and AIDS.
Now the students are more aware that even if you are infected with the virus, it doesn't make you less of a person or less of a student, and you can still socialize and make your life better.
But with the Gender Desk, people are even going to be encouraged to open up, because the Gender Desk encourages, it encourages the victims to be able to talk, and it gives them a safe space.
Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Gloria Musimbi.
Thank you, Gloria. Now to other stories. Now, grade 7, 8, and 9 learners will in the coming years be domiciled in existing primary schools. This is part of the directives issued by President William Ruto, who received a preliminary report from the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms today. As a result, the government has further directed that an extra classroom and a laboratory be built across all primary schools to be used by the junior secondary school learners. Grace us more details regarding the preliminary report.
It is a sigh of relief for many parents who are concerned for safety and suitability of their grade 6 children joining junior secondary schools after President William Ruto directed that grade 7, 8 and 9 learners will now be domiciled in the existing primary schools. The directive follows a preliminary report that was released by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms. Last month, the party toured various counties collecting views regarding how the CBC curriculum can be improved and received numerous calls from parents to domicile grade 7, 8 and 9 in primary schools. The country's top basic education unions, KUPPET and NAT, had shared differing opinions on the same, with the NAT calling for learners in the 3 grades to be domiciled in primary school due to safety concerns, while KUPPET affirming that secondary schools were best equipped to handle the transition. NAT was also against the move based on age, with the union insisting that it's imprudent to mix the children aged between 11 to 14 years with those between 15 to 19 years in the same premises, a fact disputed by KUPPET.
Let us go to qualification.
To ensure all is smooth sailing, the president has now instructed that an extra classroom and laboratory be built across all primary schools to be used by the junior secondary school learners. At the same time, President Ruto has directed that the Grade 6 Kenya Primary School Education Assessment KPSEA examination shall not be used to determine the placement of pupils to junior secondary school JSS. According to Ruto, KPSEA will instead be used to scrutinize learning progress and provide feedback to education sector players on areas of competency-based curriculum CBC that require intervention.
My own kids go to the government system, the education system that I preside over. If I cannot trust my children with the system that I am presiding over, why should anybody else do? You know, you cannot be a parent in a different system and you pretend to be a leader in a system that you have no faith in.
The government will also work together with relevant education stakeholders to find out ways of retooling teachers to be compliant with the CBC system.
Even in the 844 system, that would be where we would actually be going. That's where we would be going. Because the reason why we have been having a secondary school, one secondary school, for every so many primary schools is because some numbers fell off, you know? Some numbers fell off.
Additionally, teachers will see their number increase by 30,000 by January 2023 to assist in the CBC transition. The Presidential Working Party on Education Reform has up to March 2023 to submit the final report to the President.
I'm just a parent here now, having a conversation with you about my daughter's education.
Grace Wangoi for TV Newswatch.
The National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of JLAC, has recommended the approval of the formation of a tribunal to investigate the conduct of the 4 embattled IEBC commissioners. In a report to the House, the committee said all 4 petitions by the Republican Liberty Party, Reverend David Nthumbi, Geoffrey Langat and Steve O'War, had enough grounds to warrant the formation of a tribunal to investigate the conduct of the 4 commissioners, Juliana Cherera, Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi, and Justus Nyang'aya. Now, the country now risks being without an electoral commission as the term of the 3 other commissioners, Chairman Ofula Chebukati, Abdi Guliye, and Boya Molu, comes to an end in January 2023.
Be able to finish what they are doing within their corporation and bring us views which are properly articulated by that organization. It would be fair that way.
Through you, Chair, I wanted to know from this representative of the Youth Council, since he represents a body corporate, whether he has any formal request in the manner that body corporate makes its communication, whether he has any even formal request that he has already orally made for such extension of time. And if he hasn't, then perhaps, Chair, it would be prudent to let him go and formalize whatever request that he's making before us orally in the manner that that organization makes its formal communication.
Meanwhile, Parliament has unanimously approved the appointment of the 51 principal secretaries nominated by President William Ruto. The principal secretaries had appeared before their respective departmental committees for vetting, unlike the cabinet secretaries who faced the appointments committee chaired by Speaker Moses Wetangula. Yesterday, a record 30 principal secretaries were vetted by the parliamentary departmental committees ahead of their approval this afternoon by the House. Now, their approval now paves way for their swearing in on Friday.
One, Veronica Nduva, who was my classmate at the University of Nairobi, has now been approved. And my other classmate, the PS nominee for housing, the Honorable Charles Hinga, as PS in the Ministry of Housing, Honorable Speaker, and also the regional manager, Kera, in Kiambu County, who is now the principal secretary nominee for roads. Honorable Speaker, I especially congratulate them. With that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit and support.
That taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs in its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as principal secretaries laid on the table of the House on Thursday, December 1st, 2022, and pursuant to the provision of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, I beg to move that this House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs on the approval hearings of nominees for appointment to the position of principal secretaries under Article 155(b)(3)(b) of the Constitution, laid on the table of the House on Thursday 1st. So I set this House to approve the appointment of the following persons as the principal secretaries, Mr. Speaker.
Affairs. There being no interest in debating the motion, I now put the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Affairs on its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as principal secretaries laid on the table of the House on Thursday, December 1, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, this House approves the appointment of the following persons as principal secretaries. 1, Mr. Patrick Mariru, State Department of Defense. 2, Dr. Korir Singoe, State Department for Foreign Affairs. 3, Ms. Roslyn Njogu, State Department for Diaspora. And 4, Mr. Abdi Dubat, State Department for the East African Community Affairs. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
And President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua today met with Luhya leaders at State House in Nairobi. The leaders allied to both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza coalitions were represented at the meeting, among them Co-to Secretary General Francis Atwoli, who was a harsh critic of President Ruto before the August general elections. Other members of the delegation included Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, Kakamega Senator Boniface Khalwale, and Cleopas Malala. Mudavadi stated on his social media platforms that they discussed and agreed on the leaders' unity of purpose and the sharing of national resources for the region's socio-economic development. On the international scene, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is considering resigning after an advisory panel probing a burglary scandal at his farm found that he may have violated the constitution. The president has been accused of covering up a $4 million theft from his farm in 2020, including kidnapping and bribing the burglars into silence. The three-person panel set up in September to probe the alleged cover-up of theft at Ramaphosa's farmhouse wrote in its conclusions that the information information it gathered discloses that the president may have committed serious violations and misconduct. Now, the country's parliament is set to examine the report and decide whether to push ahead with the impeachment proceedings next week, only days before Ramaphosa faces a crucial internal party election. Now, reacting to the report, Ramaphosa reiterated his denial of any wrongdoing.
Dragging the president before an impeachment process is a huge decision. It cannot be done on flimsy grounds. There has to be something tangible that you can hold on to before you take that decision.
When we announced that today we'll be receiving this report from the panel, independent panel, we then also announced that on the 6th, by the way, even there was consultation with all political parties, and it was agreed to that on the 6th, which is next week, Tuesday, this report will be tabled before the Assembly.
I will go through the report as the Office of the Chief Whip and call caucus to brief caucus what is the content of the report. At the moment, we'll be shooting from the dark because we don't know what the report is all about.
Wakasema sitafanikiwa, amebadilisha mambo.
Hizo ndizo habari za sasa za runinga ya CB, station nambari 1 na yenye habari zinazoaminika zaidi.
Maybe you know it.
Okay. I have this hope that cannot be shaken.
Maybe you've heard of it.
Shooting for the stars when you're nyota. Bado mi wish ka Toyota.
But you've never witnessed it. Come and be part of a whole new take on Friday Frenzy, a musical interpretation by DJ Kevin and Tiffany Wamboi. And a special guest appearance. Only on Hope TV every Friday from 8:50 p.m.
To business now, agribusiness firm Kakuzi is set to adopt a new collective bargaining agreement CBA with the Kenya Plantation and Agricultural Workers Union KOPAU, featuring a 9% salary increase for 2022 and another 9% for 2023. The signing of the 2022-2023 CBA follows a round of concerted negotiations between the Kakuzi management and employees represented by KOPAU officials and workers' shop stewards. Speaking when he confirmed the conclusion of the negotiations and CBA signing by the management, Kakuzi Managing Director Chris Flowers said the salary increases are effective this month, November 2022. And as part of the agreement with KOPAU, the firm will backdate the due payments to January this year. The company will load the other 9% increase onto the salaries of the unionizable staff from the 2,500 workforce in January next year. To the fields now, the National Women's Sevens team has finally departed the country to participate at this weekend's Dubai Sevens International Invitational in the United Arab Emirates. Dennis Mwanja's charges were seen off at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba, who wished the team all the best as they battled Tunisia, South Africa and France women development in the two-day competition. The Lionesses had been in danger of missing out on the tournament due to lack of visas, in addition to the fact that they have gone for 5 months without pay. all the very best to the Lionesses. To other stories now, defender Ben White has left England's World Cup squad in Qatar to return home for personal reasons and is not expected to return for the rest of the tournament. The 25-year-old Arsenal player has 4 caps for England and did not make an appearance for the Three Lions as they finished top of Group B. White was not selected for the first 2 group games against Iran and the US and missed the win against Wales on Tuesday night because of illnesses. And that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of Newswatch. Thank you for your invaluable company. Tomorrow, Tiffany Wambui takes over to regale you with Friday Frenzy. You don't want to miss that. Before then, I have been your presenter, Melissa Odor. My sign language interpreter has been Boniface Mureithi. Have a good night.